I think there's something about how we feel a part of something. And I think as humans, we have this deep yearning and need to be part of something, to be with people. And I think there's nothing more painful than when you feel excluded, when
Mm.
you feel like you're on the outside looking in. And so community is an invitation.
Mm.
It's a show up as you are, be a part of something, share similar experiences. And I think some of the ways that we're talking to each other, some of the dialogue that is toxic that's out there, is because people are seeking that sense of belonging.
Welcome, everyone. This is Caleb David with the Commercial Real Estate Unfiltered podcast, and I am so excited to have our guest on today, a friend that I met through the Colorado Governor's Fellowship in 2021. I am excited for this conversation because we're going to talk about community, we're going to talk about leadership, we're going to talk about civic engagement. We don't always just talk about commercial real estate on this podcast, and we want to address all kinds of topics and issues. So let me introduce Kara to you guys. Kara Penn is a principal consultant for Mission Spark and the co-author of the book, Fail Better, Design Smart Mistakes, and Succeed Sooner. She co-founded Mission Spark in 2011. Kara has over 20 years of experience as a leader, manager, facilitator, and a consultant and a coach in Colorado and throughout the United States. She's both thoughtful and action oriented, and I can attest to that 100%. She's known for taking on difficult and complex social sector projects and leading collaborative efforts to solve thorny problems. Kara also strives to make the best and most practical ideas, lessons, and tools from policy, management, community development, social movements, and systems thinking to help strengthen and innovate the social sector. That is just a glimpse at who Kara is. She's just an incredible human. And Kara, thank you for being here and being willing to share with our audience today.
Caleb, I'm so glad to be here. You're such a wonderful friend and leader yourself, and it's a privilege to talk with you.
Awesome. Let's talk a little bit about Mission Spark. Let's start there. What kind of inspired you to start that? And maybe tell us a little bit about the organization and what you seek to do and what you've accomplished.
Yeah, sure. So when I was about 15 years old, I think it became very clear to me that I was very passion driven and I was driven by really tackling injustices. Social justice felt very important to me. I think at that young age, I really started to look at pathways for the pursuit of social justice through really anything I did and anything that I was privileged to touch. And so that led to a journey really where whether it was undergrad, grad school, volunteer work, paid work, it
Yeah.
all came back to social impact. And I
Yeah.
think that's just the personal mission to expand the space for thriving, expand the space for happiness in a very broken world.
Yeah.
And I think it was just really trying to figure out how I could use my voice and what abilities I could lend to that. So for Mission Spark, it was born out of some hardship in some ways. I had graduated from policy school in my MBA in 2007. And that was a very difficult market out there. So I had this
Yeah.
amazing job out of New York City where I was working on a climate change collaborative with big cities. And I was actually laid off my position and I was based here in Colorado. And I just became very entrepreneurial in response and founded Mission Spark with two co-founders, both of which who exited for other jobs relatively early. And so I just had 15 years of building and running Mission Spark, where I get to do all sorts of really cool projects in Colorado that are 100% mission driven. I have a fellowship program. I'm trying to inspire and provide opportunities to the next generation of social entrepreneurs and social impact motivated folks like myself.
I love that. And I know just because we've worked together on some projects and some things with the Governor's Fellowship, the impact that business owners can have in civic engagement, in policy, in just making our world a better place. And how do you approach, obviously we all have our own political views. So how do you bring people to the table? And what are some strategies that can be employed for civil discourse?
Yeah, I love that question, Caleb. And first of all, I just really want to honor and appreciate folks out there, whether they're working for profit, nonprofit, entrepreneurial environments, to lead from anywhere and to be civically engaged and to think about how they can contribute to making the world a better place. And there's so many different ways to do that and so many belief systems that underpin that. And really, I think we can't get past the solution, which is really authentic relationship and the humanization of each other, like seeing each other not as political foes, but like
Oh,
people who have many similar values and shared vision for well-being in one's life. And so I think in some of the work we were able to do together, we looked at ways to address complex polarized issues, including firearm injury, violence prevention, access to firearms. We're just very polarized as a country around that. So creating ways that we can talk to each other. I think of myself in the role that I play as a facilitator.
mm,
It's really about creating safe space, having
yeah,
supportive guidelines, demonstrating a commitment to hearing all voices, and doing that in a way where people can both feel like themselves, but also feel that they're being respected and that they're respecting others. So deep, authentic listening, supportive guidelines that help people have those vulnerable conversations, shared vision. How can we find that common ground
yeah,
with each other? And then gaze in the same direction, right? So when we think about polarities in particular, I think we're like, okay, what if we all, no matter our perspectives, look at taking the gun violence example, like if we just had unfettered access and everybody had access to a gun, what are the pros of that? What are the cons of that? Okay, all of us come over and look at what if we didn't have access to any
yeah,
firearms and those were banned and nobody was allowed to have. And then we talk about the pros and cons of that. And by doing that, I think it's easier to find and respect different opinions and find more middle ground and solutions that many people were part of building
yeah,
and that many people can get behind
yeah,
and support. That to me are some of the ingredients of success for having those difficult conversations and moving
mm,
our communities forward around
yeah.
difficult.
Yeah, when you're facilitating conversations like that, what are some of the basic guidelines that you like to put forth to set the tone?
Yeah, I appreciate that. I appreciate that so much. Listen first to understand before
Mhm.
you speak. I think so many of us, and we see this on social media, many different environments, we bring some of that social media culture and voice where there's not too much repercussion when we're looking at each
Right.
other face to face. You
Yeah.
think about when I say this to you, Caleb, the way that I might say it to just a stranger
Yeah.
on social media. So it's so important to just really deeply listen
Mm,
before already saying, okay, I've shut this person down. Here's my response. Here's my argument, which is 90%, I think, of what we're doing
yeah.
out there on social media. So that's an important one. One that I think people don't often think about is stories
Mm,
are people's own. It's not really my permission or your permission
yeah.
to really in depth share somebody else's vulnerable story, right? So
Yeah.
the opportunity to say, share your own story, share your own lived experience in these spaces. I think sharing the platform. So if you're a loud voice, just notice yourself. Notice, okay, how do I make room for other folks?
Yeah.
If you're somebody who tends to be a little quieter, dig a little deep and think about, hey,
Yeah.
I really have important things to say, and we're going to create space for you to bring that forth. So we're very capable of human beings of regulating ourselves. And when we're invited to do that and to think
Yeah.
about, okay, my voice is taking up a lot of space right now. I wouldn't want somebody to talk over me. Let me create that space for other people. So those are three important ones. Oftentimes in spaces where people are going to be maybe vulnerable or emotional or angry, whatever it might
Mm,
be. Two things with that. One, we create a confidential space.
yeah.
And the learnings go with the stories and vulnerabilities that people are sharing. That's what we're doing right here in this
Mm,
space to have really deep, authentic conversation. We don't
yeah.
take those out, put them on social media or tell everyone. So that piece feels important. And then the final one, and I just facilitated a conversation last night where this one was important. It's okay to sit in some discomfort. These
Mhm.
aren't easy topics. So
Right.
embrace being in some discomfort. If you need to take a break, if you need to step away, if you're starting to feel really angry or upset, what's something that you can do to just bring yourself back
Yeah.
in the way that you want to show up.
Yeah.
But it's okay to be uncomfortable. In fact, let's invite some
Yeah.
discomfort. So I know that was a laundry list, but it really does take a set
Yeah.
of supportive guidelines to really help people feel like they can have these hard conversations. And
Yeah.
as a facilitator, I see the number one job. And when I train other people in facilitation, it's like, above all, the number one job you have is to keep people safe to
Yeah.
do hard things together, emotionally safe
Yes.
and able to participate, not from a fight or flight space, but from a solutions and dreaming sort of
Yeah.
space of what we can build together.
Yeah, and I think that definitely fosters hope, right? When you have that and the ability to think forward. And I can't help but think that those guidelines that you just shared are applicable to so many aspects of our life, business, family, politics, all those different areas are it is about creating that space for people. And that's why our company's motto, yes, we're real estate, but we're creating space, we're building community. And you can't build community without that space being created. And in my former life in the nonprofit sector, we had a nonprofit called the Table Initiative, where the whole idea was take these polarizing, quote, issues and put stories to them, humanize them, take people from here. Let's take them to the Syrian border so they can sit with a refugee family or they can sit with someone who has been trafficked and understand and not just come from this perspective of prescriptive action based on what we think we should do, but it's about getting to that place of knowing and understanding and being able to make action out of those conversations. And so that kind of brings me, I feel like the theme here today is community. And what is community to you?
Before I answer that, I just want to express a lot of admiration for I know a little bit about the work that you did. You are such an authentic, genuine human who just really puts your heart, soul out there, and which is what you get. And it's just a beautiful thing for this planet. And thank you for all that you did and all the really service to this planet of having those very difficult conversations
Thank
and
you.
parts of the world that are really struggling and often are continuing to struggle. And so we're modeling that.
Thank
It's your question about community is so interesting to me because of the work that I do. So I oftentimes work with organizations who have multiple definitions of community, and we use this blanket word, right? They have their community of their colleagues that are engaged in this mission and doing this work. They have the community of the people they serve. The community, of their neighborhood in Colorado. And so I think it's so important to just think about the root of that word of community. It's like this, like collaborative, how we come together. And I think that is the unifying
Yeah.
aspect of this. It's like, how do we feel in relationship to
Yeah.
each other? I think there's something about how we feel a part of something. And I think as humans, we have this deep yearning and need to be part of something, to be with people. And I think there's nothing more painful than when you feel excluded, when
Mm,
you feel like you're on the outside looking in. And so community is an invitation.
mm,
It's a show up as you are, be a part of something, share similar experiences. And I think some of the ways that we're talking to each other, some of the dialogue that is toxic that's out there, is because people are seeking that sense of belonging
yeah.
and they're finding places that are even radicalizing them to different views because they're getting the benefit of somebody who's saying, I
Yeah.
see you
Yeah.
and you have a place here and your viewpoints are welcome and we can even make those viewpoints into something else more radical in nature. And at the root of both the good and the bad of that is just wanting to be seen, to be
Mhm.
accepted, and to be together. And so I think it calls upon all of us in being community members. And if you have the opportunity to help build community, I think it can be an expression of the world we
Yeah.
want to live in. The ability for people to be authentic, not have to hide who they are, to be a part of something. And again, to support the love and the values that help us do hard things together, that help
Yeah.
us overcome challenges and problems. And I don't say that in an idealistic
Yeah.
sort of way. Like I say that as somebody who's let's roll up our sleeves and get shit done.
Yeah.
Like that is basically my motto, like every day. Like we do very difficult things because nothing worth doing is easy.
Yeah.
And this work is especially complex
Yeah.
and so valuable, so needed. So I
Yeah.
know I took community both in a positive and
Yeah.
negative.
No.
The root of it is really like us all
Yeah.
wanting to find a place to belong.
Absolutely. No, and I'm thankful you did that because I think so often we think when we hear a word, we tend to go one direction or the other. And I think it's one of those both and situations. And speaking of doing hard things, when you're living in community or you're seeking to be seen, heard, known, what is the role of self-reflection and action that we need to take for ourselves as a coach and a facilitator? Gosh, like how we know it's important, but what role does that play in getting to better community?
That's so interesting because it echoes back to the supportive guidelines that sometimes we all just need a nudge to stop the external kind of way that we engage in the world
Yeah.
and live in the internal
Hmm.
a little bit. And in that work, I always invite as a coach curiosity because oftentimes many of us either completely ignore the inner world and
Yeah.
self-awareness. And then for those of you familiar with the language, body keeps the score, right? It's the body responds
Yeah.
to uh, the kind of internal temperature of
Mhm.
things. So we either completely ignore it or we sit in just really significant judgment of ourselves only. Hyper awareness. And I think social media contributes to that, whether it's our physical appearance or like how we show up in the world. It's like we're hyper aware, we're hyper judgmental of ourselves. And we all have this kind of internal voice that can be very harsh in nature. So I think it's like an invitation to be still
Yeah.
and to explore with curiosity. And I find for myself, and I find for most of the folks that I'm working with, or even seeing out there in the world where deep anger is showing up,
Yeah.
if you really back out of that expression of anger, that kind of very rageful sense of anger, almost always the little nugget in the middle of that is grief.
Yeah. Yeah.
Actually, very deeply feeling grief and a sense of loss.
Yeah.
Maybe it's the loss of something that was really important to us. Maybe it's a feeling of othering. Maybe it's what you believed about this country or your community, and if you back it all into it, it's just like there's something really deep to grieve there.
Yeah.
And I think the more self-aware we get about how we're showing up, how we're expressing ourselves, the invitation that I feel, I don't always hold to it, Caleb, but I sure try on that kind of social or the individual awareness is like the thing that I can control is how I show up and who I want to be, because every moment of every day, I get to choose who I want to be, no
Yeah.
matter how hard the situation is. And at the end of that, am I going to feel like that opportunity helped me lean in to the
Yeah.
values and the person that I am, or did it take me further away? And when things take me further away of who I feel like I am at my core, I feel grief about that.
Yeah.
Like that's again, that sense of separation, that sense of grieving.
Yeah.
So that's a little bit of a reflection about the importance of
Yeah.
self-awareness. Like once you get under the layers of things and how you're externalizing to the world, you can choose to show up differently and you can
Mhm.
choose to be in alignment.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that word alignment because I think there's so many levels to who we are, and to be able, and we can be authentic in all of them, but how do they play together? And I think that that's the internal battle, right? It's like you've got all these voices and all these parts of you, especially if you're like yourself and me, where social justice is such a big driver for us, right? Like sometimes we take things on that aren't ours to take on. And
Yeah.
you mentioned earlier, but the body keeps the score, and just what a brilliant book. So for our listeners out there, if you haven't read it, gosh, it's not just the internal awareness, it is the embodiment of your body, of your being. What are you feeling in this moment? So often we're just in, like you said earlier, fight or flight, and we can't be present. We can't be
Yeah.
here. And I think that is one of the keys to be living in healthy community. So, what are some practical things that you do when you feel like you're just running away from something or running to something? And what are some things that you do practically that help you get back to your center?
Yeah. And there's a coaching technique out there that kind of helps you name certain things that you notice about yourself. So, like when you're activated in your social justice space, like I affectionately, but also have a very like love-hate relationship with it, the Cape of Justice.
Yeah.
Because It is a heavy cave. Like when you are quick to activate and kind of perceptions or realities around an injustice, like that activates a lot of
Yeah.
things and it activates an orientation. But I also have a part of myself that when there is like a chaotic, a lot happening, a lot of stimuli coming in, or a lot of voices or noise, which I basically call the eye of the hurricane, right? It's this part of me, this superpower that I feel that I have that's the right moment to be in is to activate that part of myself that is able to stay calm and cool and be able to look and assess and be curious and not be caught up in the swirl. Sometimes I like physically imagine myself like I'm
Mhm.
taking off the cape of justice now and I'm hanging it on the wall. And
Yeah.
it sounds just wild to folks who haven't used that type of technique before, but it makes what can feel like the invisible or something that you don't have much
Mhm.
control into
Yeah.
something that's, oh yeah, this is like a tool in the tool belt.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna name it, I'm going to understand what it is. I'm going to turn the volume up on it, or I'm going to turn the volume down on
Mhm.
it because I accept who I am and I accept all of these parts of myself. I just don't always want all the parts showing up to the party.
Yeah.
So that's just the reality of that piece. So
Yeah.
I think of two metaphors or folks, things that people can identify with. One is MacGyvering, and this will date us or date me. I won't speak for you. Like the MacGyvering of things. It's like the
Yeah.
duct tape and the
Yep.
whatever it is that you like pull out of the tool
Yeah.
belt, you happen to carry with you and activate. And or I think of it as Neo in the Matrix when he has that mastery where he just sees the bullets coming at him and he's able to like just very
Yeah.
slow motion have that. And I think there's this invitation to know ourselves so well that and have acceptance, curiosity about ourselves
Yeah.
that we in some ways we master ourselves and we
Yeah.
continue to grow in our capabilities when we have radical acceptance of
Mm.
who we are.
Yeah.
And that, I think that is one pathway is to recognize these different parts of ourselves and when you want to call them forward. The other are the things that sometimes they're so simple, but people like sometimes are like, oh no, that's too out there
Mm.
for us. But no matter how much, and I think of this for men in particular, right? Where it's just, do you get to live in emotion? Do you get to live in a space, in a society that is just accepting of all the parts of yourself, just that breathing, that grounding, that noticing your feet on the floor, the most basic things that nobody
Yeah.
else sees or even understands that you're doing that. But you always have control of your breath. You
Yeah.
always have control of the feel of your body in relationship to things. You can always slow down in the ways that you savor your cup of coffee or drink that beer or eat whatever. It's just like
Yeah.
all of these little ways to be in a moment, even for a short period of time,
Yeah.
that can be so grounding from all of the stimuli that would take us off our game, so to speak.
Yeah.
And I think about that in even your real estate space, all the pressures and all the deals and all the things that can happen when clients go this way or a seller falls through. Don't underestimate the power, one, of knowing your superpowers and activating them, and
Yeah.
two, of just grounding,
Yeah.
in those moments and saying, I have little mantras, I have little sticky notes that I have up in
Yeah.
my room. And one of them is, it'll be okay. It always works out.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm a perfectionist, so I activate and I got to fix this. I got to
Yeah.
fix this, and I have to make it better. And then that adds angst, right? And it's just
Yes.
like, actually, it's okay.
Yeah.
Everything always works out.
Yeah.
Like, okay,
That's
bring it down.
that's one thing that my business coach has taught me is that just that mantra of everything is always working out for me, even in this
Yeah,
moment when it doesn't feel like it. There's a
exactly.
lesson to be learned here. What is that lesson? And I'll be honest with you, before I got on this call with you, gosh, my anxiety was just through the roof. I was like, gosh, maybe Kara's going to cancel today. And maybe I can just run away. For me, it was taking that moment and just being like, okay, I can do this.
Yeah,
And
you're doing it beautifully.
oh, thank you. But
Yeah,
just I went outside in my backyard and I just sat in the sun and just the simplicity of feeling the warmth. I closed my eyes, I felt my feet on the ground, and just feeling, okay, in this moment, I am fully supported. And it's just me out there with nature, and I could hear the birds sing and was able to come back inside and be like, I'm actually excited about this. I get to talk with my friend. I get to share her wisdom with the people that listen to our show. And gosh, what a gift that is. But it's understanding what tools you have. And if you don't have them, get them. And that can be therapy, that can be neuroemotional testing, it can
Yeah.
be tapping, it could be so many different things, right?
Yeah.
That
Yeah. There's
don't,
so many techniques.
yeah,
And just starting with that. One thing I love about the type of coaching or the coaching model that I was trained in, which is through the Coaches Training Institute, which is a very rigorous program. But one of their mantras that I think you come in as a coach to every environment that you're in, where you as a coach and the person that you're privileged to come alongside is creative, resourceful, and whole. If you don't have the skills or what you need, you are resourceful and can find ways to get that. If there's a door closed, you are creative and you will find a way to open or find what's right for
yeah,
you. And you're not broken.
yeah,
I'm not broken. You're not broken.
yeah,
Nobody is broken. We are whole beings
mhm,
who the world is our sandbox, right? For whatever mistake that we're making at any given time, take accountability and offer
yeah,
forgiveness, right? To yourself,
yeah,
offer that space for healing to somebody that maybe we've hurt, whether that's in a business context or in a personal. But then the beauties, and this is something I talk about in the book that I co-authored, it's everyday work. It's the everyday projects we have at work. It's the everyday projects we have at home. That is the sandbox. And the sandbox is always there. So we always get to try something different. We always get to use a different technique, and whether it's a different grounding technique or like how we ran that meeting or what
yeah,
we're doing on this podcast. It's like repeat play. There's always a million different ways that we can try something, and some will teach us some
mm,
very important things about what doesn't work or what, is knocking it out of the park. And I think that is actually very reassuring to me.
yeah,
I don't know how you feel about it, but it's very
yeah,
reassuring to say, hey, I can actually experiment just
yes,
in what I'm doing today,
yeah,
and I can get a different outcome.
yeah. And I think the self-forgiveness is a huge piece, at least for me, because we live and have been raised in such a polarized state, whether it be religion, politics, whatever, family dynamics. We are taught to respond a certain way and see ourselves a certain way through the reflection of other people. And I think that's why self reflection is so important, to be able to see ourselves, love ourselves, forgive ourselves. And honestly, it feels like a safety net of sorts, right? To be able to come back to, okay, no matter what's going on, can I come back to my original goodness, my original wholeness, and to be able to manage the self-talk. And I think part of that is the importance of community is so that you can have the people in your life that can reflect your goodness back to you, not from a pride perspective, but from a encouragement, a hey, keep going. I see you. Like you said earlier, I see you and I see your goodness. And gosh, what an incredible place to be. And we're not in that space 100% of the time. We are constantly having to come back to ourselves and find those tools. And for me, lots of times I'm going to stop in the middle of the day and take a 30-minute nap because I can. And I used to feel such guilt around that when I should be going, I should be doing this. But gosh, after I hit 40, I'm like, you know what? Forget it. And I'm about to be 46, and that's a gift I keep trying to give to myself is that gift of rest, that gift of stillness. And one of the things this past week that came to mind is I was laying down for a nap. I was like, you know what? When I rest, I manifest. And I am,
Another mantra.
that's another mantra. And
Um,
so that's been the thing. I'm like, okay, because I am taking care of me. I'm getting back to my wholeness because something is lacking in this moment right now. And so I can allow God, the universe, whatever it is, to work on my behalf while I rest. And gosh, what a gift that's been to myself.
yeah. Yeah. And that one thing that really strikes me about what you were sharing, that was at the end of the day, like we have ourselves. And there's an exercise, an activity that in my life has been so powerful. And it's when somebody is reading a set of statements about, I want you to picture somebody that you care about, and I want you to say, these things to them that I love you unconditionally. I accept who you are. I believe in you. I appreciate you. I see you with gratitude. I want every good thing for you. And then imagine the person you're saying those things to is yourself.
Yeah.
And for most people who have been focusing all that love and acceptance and intention to suddenly turn that voice and see themselves in that position is radical,
Yeah, it
right?
is.
Because it's not what we're doing. It's not how we're seeing ourselves.
Yeah.
And we're giving ourselves away and we're giving, and then that's one thing about people I think who are very motivated and mission driven, wanting to support other people who see suffering in the world and want to help ease that suffering. And as part of easing that suffering is to feel,
Mm,
that suffering. And the work that you did, you know that better than anybody because you
yeah.
were right there. We're giving ourselves away
Mm,
all the time. And when I hear you talk about that, it's okay. It's what is that peace that is nourishing, that is giving ourselves permission, giving ourselves acceptance, grieving the things that we need to grieve, doing the work that we need to do, and resting and recovering so that we can continue to be
mm,
in choice, the willingness, the ability in choice to give away,
yeah.
the things and help build the things that we want to
Yeah.
see. And that is securing your own oxygen mask before you secure the
Yes.
oxygen mask of others so that you can
Yeah.
continue to do the work. And it doesn't take much. It
Yeah.
really doesn't.
Yeah.
I love that.
Well, and I think that's so important, especially as we switch now to talking a little bit about civic engagement,
Yeah.
is the importance of having that in place and knowing what you can and cannot do, or what you will or will not do, is
Yeah.
probably a better way to say it. And when we talk about civic engagement, I encourage our listeners, find some way, somehow, to get involved, whether it be local, state level. We're not asking everybody to run for office. I know I'm not going to. But there are ways. We had just, gosh, what an honor it was to be a part of the Colorado Governor's Fellowship. There were 35 business owners from across the state that we got to see behind the scenes. We got to look into the correctional facilities and how that justice works or doesn't, climate change, policy, all these different areas. So, what would be your encouragement to our listeners of ways that they could find a way to get plugged in a small way? Because I think once we become invested in our community, we take more ownership and maybe even share some ways that you've been involved in different projects, whether it's the health sector, that sort
Yeah.
of thing.
The first kind of reflection I have as you frame that up, especially when we think about folks who may be working 80 hours a week, they may be working in jobs that they love or maybe that they don't love. And it made me think about, so I graduated with my MBA from like in 2007. And when most of us from that MBA class kind of hit our 40s, we have our communication group and whatever. We're talking like a top tier business school where everyone is like super out there,
Yeah.
finance folks and all the things. And I started to see this really interesting phenomena on our kind of shared group. All of these people were burning out
Mm,
and really seeking meaning in their
yes.
life. Like, it's what I'm building, is what I'm putting all my effort into, all my time. Does it feel worth it?
Mm,
Does it feel like it matters?
yeah.
Is there enough here for me to want to do what I'm doing? And I saw so many people switching careers,
Mm,
joining nonprofit boards, like reaching out to folks like myself who this has been the work for me, like to talk about that.
mm,
And I think that's just very true. I think we start to feel a little bit discordant about what really motivates us,
yeah.
and kind of gives something back to even ourselves that
Yeah.
feels meaningful. And so I just want to say to folks who are listening, what an incredible opportunity is. You can lead from anywhere. You can get involved. You can do that with 15 minutes. You can do it with 15 hours. You
Mm,
can make your career change if that's something that you feel really passionate about. And I think that's the beauty of civic engagement. There aren't a lot of barriers to entry. There aren't a lot of things that keep you from having this opportunity. So the things that do have come to mind, it's like looking at your network and saying, okay, who is doing some of these things that I might care about? what are the types of things that do give me joy and that I feel interested in or passionate about in the community? And then there's just like this tiny little nugget of entrepreneurialism that I think, a little risk taking that people activate in themselves. Just reach out and ask, oh, is there something? Here's what my skill set is. Is there something I can do to get
Mhm.
involved? There's volunteer matching, there are board matching organizations and opportunities. You find a nonprofit, they're always looking for board
Yeah.
members
Yeah.
everywhere.
Yeah.
And there's ways we can raise money and donate money to resources. So there's just so many different ways to engage. And then you build a whole entire different community
Mhm.
of folks. They're very different than the
Yeah.
connections that you had. So it's like starting with your own network. It's knowing and understanding the things that you maybe have passion about. It's being willing to just say, okay, 10 minutes a day, I'm going to explore
Mhm.
ways
Mhm.
that I could get engaged. And then I'm going to just take a little bit of a risk,
Yeah.
to put myself out there and explore. And like for me, right, I've got 4 kids, 5 to 15, in my own small business. And like I know that I'm unlikely to activate. This isn't everybody, but I'm probably not going to be the person who's going to design and run the school party,
Right.
Valentine's Day.
Yeah.
But when my 15-year-old school was falling apart from an administrative standpoint, and there was a lot of instability, then it was like, that's a skill set that
Mm.
I could maybe bring
Yeah.
into this community to help stabilize. So
Yeah.
it's like finding the things that we are good at that we can then
Yeah.
kind of contribute. So that's one pathway.
Yeah.
And then we were privileged, Caleb, to reach out and engage in some of these leadership opportunities that are out there, using our professional development dollars to do a level of civic engagement and to be engaged and build additional relationships. What are some of the pathways you've built? How did you come to? I know you have this incredible background of
Yeah.
building and running a nonprofit, but then you moved to commercial real estate. So how did you find a
Yeah.
pathway to stay engaged?
Yeah. So I think for me, it was important because, like you said, the burnout was real for me. I'd been in the nonprofit sector for almost 20 years, was running my own small nonprofit. COVID hits. We ended up shutting down during COVID. But rewind a few years, I was just running all over the world, which was amazing. I loved it, but it was exhausting. There was not a whole lot of money. And so that moment in my mid 30s was, if I don't change this now, then when will I do it? And so that's when I took that big leap to an industry that is pretty much commission only, right?
Yeah.
And it was, thankfully, I had a part-time salary because I was someone's assistant as well. And I think for me, it was like, how do I discover myself in a new light? How do I look at myself in a new way, yet taking the values that I had from the nonprofit world into this? And really, honestly, until I got into business and started working with businesses and people like Mayor Yemi of Colorado Springs, who was not mayor at the time, but seeing how he led was such a huge part of me thinking like, oh, wait, as a business owner, there's ways that I can get involved. I can serve on the board for the rezoning of the county. I can do these little things to help small businesses succeed more. We created roadmaps for all kinds of businesses. And so for me, it was just like I was doing my job, but I was also able to take my skill set and what my clients and my community needs were and bring them to these boards, to these committees. I ended up serving on the Better Business Bureau board for a short time and just being a consultant for the Small Business Development Corporation. It's exactly what you said. It's like taking your skill set and finding where the need is and just meeting that need. And it was through that and Mayor Yemi's recommendation that opened the door for the governor's fellowship, which I was like, there's no way I'm getting in. And then, so for me, it was like exactly what you said. It's those little moments of investment and exploration that opened the next door. And now we're sitting here and talking and having this conversation because of those moments. And so I think that was my path. And then also when Yemi was running for mayor, how do I get involved? Do I donate? What are the different things? Because that is a leader that I believe in. And to be the first African American and actually a Nigerian immigrant who ran as an independent in a very polarized city was able to
Yes.
unite. And that was inspiring to me and just to see how, and it's a difficult job. I don't want that job, but it keeps me curious in ways of how can I get involved. And then that I was out of the nonprofit sector since 2020, since I
Uh-huh.
went through my divorce, since COVID hit, since I lost a company. I needed a season of healing. But I was talking to my therapist about a year ago, a little over a year ago, and one of my therapists, I've got a few. It depends on
You're
what's
lucky.
at the time.
You're lucky to have you.
And she just said to me, she said, "Do you miss having that involvement in the nonprofit sector?" And a simple question, right? But I was like, all of a sudden, I was like, oh, wait, yeah, I do. And
Mm.
so shortly after that, I engaged with a friend of mine here in Denver who's got an incredible organization called Crazy Love Africa. And sponsor was a sponsor at their gala last year in November, which is this is a shameless plug for the gala coming up November 15th here in Denver, and just start a conversation with her. And our values aligned, and we had conversations, and I was the first male to ever be on their board. So I'm coming up on a year of doing that and finding the purpose. And when stuff is going on in our country politically, where US aid gets completely shut down, this
Yeah.
directly affects the women and children that we serve in Uganda. And
Yeah.
so then it's okay, now what? 80 to 90% of their access to HIV meds are gone. And it's so now what do we do? And so it's almost my sister sent this to me a while ago when I was in a dark place. But she said, hope is a small rebellion. And
Um,
I was just like, oh my gosh, it's that pinprick of light. So, to our listeners, find that hope, find that ability to rebel in a way that brings light and justice into the world. We don't have to change the entire world. We've just got to, what is ours to do? And find that spark and
love it.
run with it. But Kara, thank you for being on the show today. You truly make me a better person, the world a better place. And I'm so grateful for the work that you do. And we will make sure that people know where to find you, where to find Mission Spark. And I'm just grateful to know you.
Thank you. Caleb, I feel the same way. I wish you every good thing, and thank you for the opportunity to be here with your listeners.
Thank you so much. Thank you all for listening. This is one that I think you should listen to and re listen to and share it with a friend. We appreciate you. Have a great rest of your day. If today's episode gave you valuable commercial real estate insights, subscribe, rate, and share it. Connect with me and the David Commercial Real Estate team through the show notes. Remember, real estate is more than buildings, it's about building community. See you next time.